Hi, everybody, and welcome to our show, which is Knowledge of Spirit Radio, where we seek to find in truth. I'm one of your co-hosts, New York celebrity psychic Jesse Bravo, and with me is the greatest co-host that has ever lived, that has ever walked the earth, that's ever put his voice over the radio waves, and that is UK's top psychic radio presenter, Alan, the greatest and handsome Cox.
Thank you, Jesse. I have got that team of carpenters here, and as we're talking, they're chiseling away the doorway to get my head through it. So,
well,
hi everybody. It's lovely to be back with you again.
Oh, it's so happy to be here. You know, when we have such great people as we always have, it's always a pleasure to be on with you guys on Friday nights, because you can do whatever you want, but being here with us is special. And because of that, we want to provide only the best content and the best people out there so that you can enjoy with us. So, you know, obviously to pay the bills and a very quick, everything that you hear here you can find on knowledgeofspirit.com. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can pretty much find us every single place. I did mention that we have a new magazine that's going to be free online. We have some massive contributors. Our first issue will be coming out in July. We'll be going out next week. And all you have to do is sign up, put your email, your name. We'll send you out a free copy. You'll get to read some great stuff that we really put out there, from horoscopes down to recipes, down to spirituality, tarot cards, astrology, you name it. We pretty much have it in there.
Poetry.
And poetry, that's a good one. How I See Thee. Anyway, you know, always we have the best guests. And I have to say, I get along with most of the people that I speak with, all right? And I got along with our next guest because we want to take a little time to build him up here. Not that he needs building up. But, you know, literally we had a 2-hour conversation before he even agreed to come on to this show. And I was very lucky that my friend knew that we would get along and gave me his cell phone number. And I called him up on his mobile number. And we got along really great for 2 hours, and he agreed to come on the show. And everybody in the entire world knows who the famous psychic Colin Fry is. He needs no introduction. In the business world, Alan, as you say, he's been there.
Yes.
And done that. What do you think about that? So, with our great pleasure, we'd like to introduce Colin Fry.
Hello, Colin.
Good evening. You know, there's this huge time gap between us. You know.
Well, the thing is, Colin, I'm over here in the UK as well, so I'm suffering as well as you at 5 past midnight.
This is a weird time of the day for me to be up. You know, I mean, I'm usually in bed with my cocoa and my National Enquirer by now. You know.
Actually, I've got a friend who used to work on the National Enquirer, and he's contributing to our magazine.
Oh, absolutely!
It sends me asleep in 5 minutes. You know, it's brilliant.
It's more of a picture magazine, isn't it? You know,
well, it's like soft pornography for the brain dead, you know?
You know, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, but I had read recently of another person who will be on our show, and I won't mention her name because until she's actually here, but she settled out of court with the Daily Mail for about £125,000. I don't know if you read that article.
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah, it's amazing how, you know, sometimes the media can say things and get away with a lot of things, but every once in a while they pay up a little bit.
Well, you know, I don't really have a lot to say about that particular case, but, you know, sometimes I think that sometimes mediums and psychics make a rod for their own back, you know, and I just think sometimes it's just better to keep your head down and just do your work. Yeah? You know, if you don't want stones thrown at you, don't put your head above the parapet.
That's true. Matter of fact, we can speak about one of these topics right now that I was thinking about. And Alan, I know that you probably have a little bit of tiff of this. You know, we're not here to bash the entire spiritual world or the psychic world.
No.
But I think it's really hard to really quantify when somebody puts down that they're 90% accurate. What do you think about that, Colin?
You know, thank you very much, you know, for introducing me as a psychic medium. But, you know, I've always said I'm not a psychic medium. I'm a spiritualist medium.
I know.
And, you know, I always say, you know, you don't have to make claims for yourself. Just do the work, and your work will speak for itself. And, you know, there will be some people that will support and like and need and want what you do, and there will always be people that will disregard it, ridicule it, insult it. And you really can't waste energy on those people that are negative against what we do, because there's too much to do for the people that do want and need what we do. So, you know, I can't really see, other than getting sort of like personally offended, that there's a great deal of point in defending yourself. You know, people are going to say what they're going to say. So just forget it. Just get on with your work. Get on and work for the people that need what you do and want what you do.
You know, Colin, when you first started on your spiritual journey, did you ever at any time think that you'd become as well known as you are? I mean, what was your intention at the beginning?
Oh, look, you know, there's a little story in my autobiography. When I was 16, I went to the Dome, which is a theatre in Brighton, to see the late, great Doris Stokes. And a friend of mine worked at the Dome, and he said, would you like to meet her? And I was taken into her dressing room, and I was introduced to her husband, John, and she was sitting at this dressing table. And she turned around and she just said to me, oh, my darling, she said, voices are going to come out of the air all around you. I hadn't got a clue what she was talking about. I was 16 years old at the time.
Yeah.
She said, you know, you will travel the world. And she started naming all these countries. And, yeah, I thought, yeah, of course this is going to really happen. And then she said, and your greatest success will come in your 40th year. I'll come back to that in a minute. She then proceeded to give me the most remarkable message from my grandfather. Described him and his physical disabilities. She came up with his name. She mentioned things that only my grandfather and I knew. And then many, many years later, when I was doing my first tour of New Zealand, we were in Hamilton. And it just suddenly occurred to me that as I'm walking through the streets of Hamilton with my crew, that Doris Stokes, all those years beforehand, had named in order every country that I had worked in up until that point.
Incredible.
Talk about having the path laid out for you well before it happened.
But I think we all have the path laid out for us. You know, I mean, I don't go on a lot about guides, but, you know, I mean, long before television came along for me, I was probably best known in the Spiritualist movement, not as a clairvoyant medium, but as a trance medium. And I have a recording of one of my guides talking to a group of people, and he was asked this question about the path that is laid out for us. And he explained it in such a perfect way. And he said, we are like a pea in a walnut shell. Within that walnut shell, we can rattle around as much as we like. And that's our free will. But that walnut shell is in a groove. And it will roll along that groove. And that path is set for us. So, you know, we do have free will, but we have a path to follow. And we can either choose to follow that path easily, or we can struggle against it. But, you know, one way or the other, we have to follow that path.
You know, that's why I believe, you know, for the people out there, and I mean, whether they believe in the psychic or you don't believe in a psychic, which is fine either way. But one thing I have to say to people who do go to psychics is that there's a great sense of relief when a psychic can reaffirm what you already knew internally inside. You know what I mean? Like, people know internally what they need to do, but sometimes they need to hear it from somebody else. And when the spiritualist medium is that vehicle from someone, you know, whether it's a guide or it's a family member, what a sense of relief and pleasure it is to get that, you know?
I've actually been going on about this on my Facebook page over the last couple of days. The medium's role is to the best of their ability, to provide evidence of survival of the human personality after this thing we call death. But, you know, and not wishing to sort of be disrespectful to anyone that goes to see a medium, whether it's in a private sitting situation or at a spiritualist church or at a public demonstration, I have to say that sometimes the public don't help themselves. You know, I'm always telling my audiences when I'm doing my big shows, please don't give me information. Let me tell you. Because, you know, if you're going to, you know, I mean, I remember years ago I was working at St David's Hall in Cardiff, and I pointed to a woman up in the balcony and I said, darling, I have to come to you. I said, I've got your mother with me. She said, yes, her name was Elsie. She was 84 when she passed away. My dad's name was Sid, and we had a 3-bedroom house in Pontypridd. I had nothing left. I said, you know, and it's like when people write into my, you know, my management for private sittings, they give this long, sprawling letter of all the reasons why they want to see me. And we have to write back to them and say, I'm sorry, you know, as much as I would like to be able to see you, I can't now because you've told me too much.
Yep, it interferes.
Yeah.
You know, when you go in and you see them under any circumstances, sit down and let the medium tell you what it is that they are connecting to. If they're connecting to anything at all on that particular occasion.
Well, that's it, isn't it, Colin, when you think about it? A lot of people think that it can be just turned on like a tap, that it is the medium who is, in a sense, doing the work, where it's spirit doing the work through the medium.
Exactly. You know, and we can't summon them. You know, there has to be the need, the desire, the necessity, the ability for them to connect. And if it can happen, we're just a conduit by which, to the best of our ability, and as long as we've developed and trained and honed our ability sufficiently, that we can pass, you know, the information on for those that can, should, are able to, or want to.
You know, that's very interesting, you know, because, you know, Colin, as any industry, whether it's psychic or banking or a baker or anything, when you're working, if you get information, that's going to go into the subconscious. And whether you like it or not, it's going to come back in one way, shape, or form. And that's why the best readings is when no information is given. Because you may not want to give something up or intentionally mislead someone. But if you hear something, you don't know what your subconscious is going to do with it.
If you, there's a very good book that I would suggest anyone read. It's the autobiography of the direct voice medium Leslie Flint, who I had the great pleasure to know towards the end of his life. And he relates a particular story in his autobiography when he was saying how that he'd been having a very animated conversation with friends during the morning about a particular subject. And then that afternoon, they had a direct voice seance for a group of people, and his guide, Mickey, came through in the independent direct voice and started to speak in detail about this conversation, the subject of this conversation that he'd been having with friends earlier on. And, you know, he said that this is why the medium should try to keep their mind as uninfluenced as possible, because he was utterly convinced that even though this was his guide who was someone independent of him, because this conversation had been so animated during the morning, there were parts of it that were coming out in the communication during the afternoon when they had their seance. So, you know, I think it's really, really important, you know, that the public understands, you know, that, you know, if you sit and you write a letter to a medium, I perfectly understand on the sort of like the counselling aspect of why people write all these details of why they want to see a medium. But, you know, you have to understand that, you know, you're not helping yourself in a connection, and you're certainly not helping the medium, because if you are giving them information that on some level is going to seep into their subconscious, it could well taint the communication if and when it takes place.
Okay. I'll tell you this little story of what happened to me. I was just starting on my journey, and this guy who worked for MTV says, hey, listen, I have this ghost tour that I do here in Manhattan. He's like, would you be a medium to go through this ghost tour for these people? And for me, I just wanted to really, I was so excited about my abilities and what I was doing. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it, right? So we go on this tour, and I'm doing a great job for me. Then happened by chance, for whatever reason, he's having a conversation with this young lady, and he just happens to mention a prison. Well, lo and behold, the next spot that we went to, guess what came out in my mind? A prison. And I could not get away from the thought. And, of course, it wasn't a prison, you know. And I completely blew it in that particular location. And that taught me a valuable lesson. Just to walk around with earplugs and just mind my own business.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's what we do when we're young. And there's things that I look back, when I was a young man. God, I'm 51 now, and I look back on things that I allowed myself to be persuaded to do as a medium. And I think, maybe it's too harsh a word to use, maybe it's not. But I think as you get older, you begin to understand that you cannot allow yourself, and you can't allow other people to persuade you to prostitute your gift.
Colin.
I remember the old lady that helped me in my development in the early days. She said to me, and I was 17 at the time, and I don't think I truly appreciated what she was saying at the time. But, she said to me, if you don't respect your ability, nobody else will. So, what I would dare to suggest to you now is that if you were put into a situation now where you were asked to do, like a ghost tour like that, probably at your age, you've probably got more respect for your ability.
Oh, absolutely.
You would say, yes, I will do it, but I will do it under my terms.
Yes.
And I think, as we get older, just as in all walks of life, you should, hopefully, we all develop more respect for ourselves and what we do as we get older. And the problem with being young is that, of course, you can't be told. I just recently I was lecturing my teenage nephew, and I was like sort of halfway through giving him this sort of like the benefit of my years, and I suddenly thought, oh my God, I sound just like my parents. But of course, as you get older, you realise that's not such a bad thing.
No.
And I think, I remember the old lady that trained me, when I asked her when I was 17, I said to her, what makes a good medium? And, she was in her 70s at the time, and she looked over the top of her glasses at me, and she said, darling, you need to have had some joy in your life, you need to have had some pain in your life, and you need some care. Now, at 17, I thought it was the most patronising thing anyone had ever said to me, but now I understand what she means.
We've actually got a friend of yours, Colin, who is going to phone in, Sue Farrow, and she'll be going to call in. Yeah,
she's a lovely editor of Psychic News. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, she's in that hotel room, and she can't listen to the show, but she's going to phone in. So she's actually going to give you a call about now. So if our producer Joe can bring her in.
Oh, that's great. I love when that happens. This whole, Colin, I don't know about you. I mean, you started when you were so young. You were so lucky to have realized what your path was at a very early age. But Does it almost seem to you that you lived many lifetimes within this lifetime?
I think I was a strange child, full stop. You know, you know, I feel a bit like Michael Jackson here. I'm not like other boys. You know, it's like I can remember. You know, I hated school. I can remember from the first day I started school. You know, I was 5 years of age, and I remember just walking and thinking, this place is never going to teach me anything. And I just knew that, you know, everything that I needed to know about life, existence, was going to come in other ways. It wasn't going to come through this. I actually don't. Overall, I don't actually really approve of the education system anyway. I think it's sort of too often it's the case of a system trying to ram square pegs into round holes, you know.
Okay.
And you know, any individual aptitude, ability, unique intelligence that a child has seems to be squashed out of them by this trying to make them conform to, you know, a standard one-size-fits-all criteria. Personally, if I had anything to do with the education system across the world, I'd probably encourage a Steiner-style education, where, you know, the individual is encouraged to grow according to whoever they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not so easy. You know, it's a cookie. I call it the cookie cutter model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you know. I mean, I was strange, but look, I can tell you how strange I was. I was the only boy in my neighbourhood that had an action man that was dressed in Barbie's clothes. You know? I was a strange boy.
Oh, Colin.
I had the only transvestite action man in the whole of the district.
Well, you know what? Times have changed, I have to say. And you know, to talk to that point here in the United States, they're now educating children how other kids have two same-sex parents. And they're writing books about it and educating children so that it's not such of a, you know, Colin, way back when it was a different time and that was not even a thought. But now it has.
You know, we're going a bit off subject here, but, you know, my experience, you know, I have been an openly gay man since I was 16 years of age. I was with my first partner for nearly 22 years. I've been with my current civil partner for 9 years. We've been married for 8 years. I can understand why gay and lesbian couples would want children. Mm-hmm. But there's another part of me that says, you know, is it the want of a child or is it just another fashion accessory? So, you know, it's, and I worry, I just worry, you know, that maybe change has to happen gradually. It has to happen, but it has to happen gradually. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder if we're far enough forward yet. Not for the sake of the couples that want to, the gay couples that want to have children, but the children themselves, you know, has the world moved forward enough for a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old at kindergarten? And kids can be incredibly cruel. You know, mm-hmm. A group of kids around them saying, well, why haven't you got a mummy? And why have you got 2 daddies? Or why haven't you got a daddy? And why have you got 2 mummies? You know? And there's... Kids are sweet and wonderful and great and fantastic. They're also incredibly spiteful and cruel. And there's just something in that process of them growing up where if there's something different about one of their peers, they will target them. And I just worry that the world hasn't moved forward enough yet. Of course, there's always got to be people that start the process. But, you know, what I would have to say is, you know, let's just hope to God it's not at the expense of the children concerned.
Yeah, this is a great question, and I just thought about this. Let's go into history. Let's have a history lesson here. Way back when we have spiritual mediumship start to emerge, when we get to the term of a seance, right, Colin? At that time, when you read like Alan Kardec books, and you read about the mediumship that was going on at the time, spirit at that time was mostly using objects to convey or communicate messages with the sitters of the group, okay? Now that some time is going to pass, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, the two subjects that we've just been talking about are sort of in some way interlinked. If you go back to those early days of communication, with like the Fox sisters, the Davenport brothers, Emily French. At the time, there was this group of people who started to label themselves as spiritualists. And other than the fact that spirit were making an attempt to communicate in a often very direct way, they didn't really understand the phenomena that they were dealing with. And in fact, that meant that the mediums concerned were often used to the point of exhaustion. If you look at the Fox sisters in particular, who should have been respected by the community that they're working for, should have been guarded. Somebody should have realised that these are three young girls that are being almost forced to demonstrate to the point of exhaustion. As spiritists, we just weren't advanced enough at the time to understand the phenomena that we were dealing with, and how, particularly in the cases of the mediums I'm talking about, where it was a very physical phenomena, a very physical mediumship.
Yes.
The mediums at the time were just, I have to actually say, used and abused for the sake of the desires of the people to get the communication that they wanted through them. And I'd have to say, okay, yes, we've moved on a little bit now, but I have to say, and I'm the most guilty party for this. Over the course of the last 11 years, where I've been very intensively working worldwide, there have been times when I have collapsed with nervous and physical exhaustion. Because you just, when you're so much in the public profile and there's so much need that you're trying to deal with, it's very difficult to say no sometimes. I would say I think that the point that I'm trying to get to is that we need to understand that mediums are human beings. Physical bodies that become tired. We have minds that some days function far better than they do others. And, I get heartily irritated in this country when, I listen to the public talking sometimes and say, oh, I went to see such and such a medium. And they weren't very good. Well, no, maybe they weren't very good on that night because maybe they were tired, or maybe they were just trying their best. And maybe it just wasn't quite connecting the way that they wanted to. And I sometimes think that the media, the public they go along with such high expectations, and they don't realise that everything that is happening through a fallible, sometimes fragile, not always terribly strong human being.
That's true. If you look at Edgar Cayce, that poor man spent more time on a couch laying down than he ever did standing up on his 2 feet.
Well, go back to what I was saying about the Fox sisters and look at their history. One of them in particular had a terribly tragic life, was terribly abused, ended up virtually bankrupt, got coerced into falsely signing a confession that she was a fraud. Just for the sake of the fact is that at the time she was broke and she needed the money. And, then later on when her health had recovered a little bit and she tried to retract her statement, the media was saying, oh, no, you've already admitted that you're a fraud. They didn't take into circumstances how they made her falsely admit that she was a fraud.
Yeah, can't go backwards.
No, you can't. You can't go. You can't go backwards, and it's terribly tragic. What happened to her, but we talk a lot in this movement about how we need to train, mediums and healers, and we want higher standards for mediums and healers. But I think there also has to be sort of quite a bit of education to the public about what you should reasonably expect from a medium when you go to see them.
So if you went to a medium and they didn't perform up to expectation, then you would be like, hey, that's just the way it is.
Depends on what the circumstances are. If you go to a public demonstration, you are going to witness the experience. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is any guarantee that you personally are going to get a message. But if the medium performs their duties properly, then they can certainly make sure that the audience are part of it. If you go for a private medium and it doesn't work and nothing happens, then an ethical medium should turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, it hasn't worked today. There's no charge today because obviously it hasn't happened.
Yep.
Come back and see me again and we'll try again. My rule has always been if someone comes to me 3 times and I get a blank on 3 occasions, then I say to them, look, obviously I'm not on the wavelength of whoever might want to connect to you. This is a phone number of a friend of mine who's a medium. Go and see them. I will send them to somebody else because I think it's arrogant of any medium to think that you are always the right medium for a person's loved ones or friends, because of course we're not there. There are just some incompatibilities, and as a medium you should accept that there's just sometimes that connection will not happen through you. You're not on the right wavelength, and you should have the good grace to send somebody to somebody else. That's
a smart thing to do, because Alan, I don't know about you, but I've had this happen plenty of times myself where, you meet somebody and you're just like, nothing. And you're like, damn it, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I'm being left hanging here by spirit, but that's just the way it goes.
I must admit, it's all right. I'm sorry if it seemed like I'm concentrating. I've been communicating with Sue, who I said was going to come on, and she's been trying to phone in and she can't get in. So my concentrating was actually on with Sue. But what you've just said there, Jesse, yeah, I've had that happen to me. And I will say to the person, this is it's such a shame, but I'm not getting anything. I'm not prepared just to sit there and make things up, just to fill time up. And, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I can only do what I can do. And in circumstances like that, no, I won't take any money off somebody.
It can be very upsetting at times as well. I know last year, I had a family come from the other end of the country, and as soon as they walked through the door, I just had to say to them, there's nothing. I'm not going to get anything for you because I can feel absolutely nothing. And there's no point me sitting here saying I can, because there isn't anything, And they were trying to. I was upset for them, but I just think that it is most definitely the ethical thing to do. To say there's nothing. I can't feel anything for you.
Yeah. You see, this is a good point, isn't it, Colin? It's the perception of what people think. It's not the same as going into a shop or a store and buying something, and you're saying, "Well, that's what I want."
I quite agree with that. But unfortunately, some of the hype in the media, and I have to actually say as well. Some of the hype that the psychic and mediums create around themselves. You know, when you get these, you know, statements that some of the mediums, you know, the world's most accurate medium.
But the truth,
infallible information, you know, 100% accurate. You know, and I just, you know, I mean, you know, I don't know what it's like in the States, but you know, we have laws in this country, but people just can't make those statements. Exactly. But they do, and unfortunately, you know, with some of the media, some of the press, you know, both UK side and state side, you know, they make claims of what mediums are supposed to do, and the skeptics do it as well. You know, oh well. You know, psychics say they can do this and psychics say they can do that. And, you know, I've actually tackled some of these skeptics and said, please bring to me somewhere where I have said that I can do these things that you are saying that I claim I can do. You know, and it's if you listen or you read some of the media sometimes, you know, you just think they're not helping us at all, because they often make these outlandish claims of what psychics and mediums do that, in fact, mediums never claim for themselves, never claim to do these things themselves.
Well, at least anybody who's got any... Sorry about that.
There's only one source, isn't there? There's just one source where the information comes from. And if the connection is there at that time, the information will filter through. You can't make claims that you're 100% accurate, because it's not you doing the accuracy, is it?
No. It's you know, I mean, I had a very strange situation where I was doing a reading a little while back, and I actually said to this woman, I said, I'm sorry to have to say this to you, darling. I said, but I think in life your father was a Walter Mitty character, and he just lied all the time. And I said, and I think he's still doing it. And she said to me, she said, that's the one thing that's convinced me that you've got my dad more than anything. She said he was just like an habitual liar. He lied about everything. You know? So, you know, you're also subject to what the personality and character is like of what the communicator was like. You know, human personality doesn't end the moment someone takes their last breath. You know, a very good friend of mine, a colleague of mine, T.J. Higgs, you know, she says, you know, when people come up to her and say, oh, my darling, I can see your grandfather standing with you, and he's such a lovely man. And she says, I don't know who you've got, but it's certainly not my grandfather.
I'll say this, Colin. I remember when I was first starting off, I said, you know what? I'm just going to put this in the, where was it, when MySpace came out. And I said, this is a great medium. I'm just going to offer people to just ask questions, you know? So I remember I started to do a reading for this girl, and I said, hey, listen, I got your uncle here, and it was what the uncle had done was really terrible. And I told her, and she's like, yeah, that's him, because this guy did X, Y, and Z. But he wanted forgiveness. So, you know, not everybody's a nice person, and, you know, they always, oh, we just got a, I think Joe is back online because our speaker is just auto-corrected.
Yes, I think you're right.
I hope that's exactly what's happened, because we were having some problems over here with our speakers. Colin, I want you to listen to this. I went into my classified papers today here in New York. And this just tells you about some of the scam artists out there. This person's name is Salim African Medium. Solves all problems. Love situations. Reunite lovers. Business. Court immigration. Black magic and luck.
We've talked about this kind of thing, haven't we? Yeah. Because, you know, I've done a program exposing really bad psychics with another friend of mine last year, and it was very revealing. So yes.
Yeah.
You know, there's been a big scam going on here in Europe for years. mostly based around sort of like Luxembourg, Belgium area, where people are getting these things saying, you know, send us sort of £20 and we'll send you this lucky amulet.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, and people fall for it, and then we say, you know, now if you don't send us another £20, like terrible bad luck is going to befall you. And you know, I do occasionally write a column for the Psychic News now, but a few years ago I used to write a regular advice column for Psychic News, and I used to say to people when they write into me about this, they said, you know, they're saying if I don't send this letter on to somebody else, you know, terrible bad luck is going to befall me. I said, send it to me. Send it to me, and I'll do the only thing that you should really do with anything like that, and let's just put it in the trash can.
Okay, I just got a notice from my guy. Our Skype is back up, so if Alan, you can have Sue call right back in.
Actually, I think you're psychic, Jesse, because I was just literally pressing the send button, asking her to.
I've been accused of being psychic. I don't know if they're all true, but
no, that's right. You can see me doing this, can't you?
Where do they start?
They started probably in another lifetime, you know. And you know, Colin, let's talk about the state of spiritualism right now. Are we in trouble? I mean, we've gotten a little too ahead of ourselves, where the caboose is far ahead of the locomotive.
The spiritualist movement is in the most diabolical state. Mm-hmm. You know, and I can't say it's any worse in any one country than the other, because you know I've travelled, I've been to the States, I've worked in Australia, I've worked in New Zealand. You know, I work regularly in Sweden and Norway, and you know, it's. I've caused a bit of controversy on my Facebook page over the last couple of days, but just saying, you know, we need to get back to what spiritualism is about. Many years ago, a great medium called Mona van der Walt, who displayed probably all of the gifts of mediumship that you could possibly think of. And one of her guides was once asked, what is the purpose of mediumship? And her guide said, it is to comfort the grieving, to heal the sick, and to bind broken hearts. And I think it's such a simple statement, but if we can remember, that is fundamentally what spiritualism is about. There is a worship aspect to it, if you want to follow the worship aspect about it. And you know, of course, as you know, I am an ordained minister. There is a philosophy side of it which is well worth investigating, and of course it is a science as well. But our fundamental responsibility by following the spiritualist way of life is to comfort the grieving, heal the sick, and to bind broken hearts. And if I could add to that, and I say, for those of us with the mediumistic ability, to offer concise, clear evidence of the survival of the human personality, not proof. No medium should ever claim that they give proof. Only the recipient has the right to decide whether that evidence is proof or not.
Okay, that's good, because you know, if you're a vehicle, you don't know the accuracy of it. You're just the delivery.
That's right, exactly.
You know, we all have anecdotal stories of messages that we've conveyed that were to us startling, profound, highly evidential. But you know, someone said to me recently that I was doing a show, and she said, "Oh, when I was here last time, she said you gave a message to me from my mum, and you know, it was amazing." And she said, "Do you remember?" And I had to be honest and say, "No, darling, I'm sorry, I don't remember." And I don't think that we should try to retain the memory of the messages that we've given. Our role is to give the message, hope to God it does what it should do, and then move on to the next message.
Well, you want to hear something interesting, Colin and Alan?
You go on then.
This is how you know the guides are working here.
Right.
We are locked into this queue.
Yes.
Including the owner of the show, who cannot get into our queue right now. How great is that? It's kind of funny. I see him writing right now to us, but we've been locked in, no interference whatsoever.
Well, it could just be the three of us talking and no one else is listening, but it's still fun.
Oh, wait a minute. Joe's just typed it's working now.
It's working. So. Finally, he's been locked out all this time, which is highly unusual. But
I'm asking Sue to phone in again. So.
Oh, that is that's so funny. But you know, the state of spiritualism, when I look at it, it's quite depressing sometimes, and I find it depressing in the form that some people are more into creating the hype in the show than being part of something bigger. So they want to make it more about them. You know, Colin.
I've worked on, I went from being, a church medium to becoming a television medium, and working in huge auditoriums. And I think that you have to adopt the attitude that what you do, although we have laws in this country that says that what we do has to be deemed to be for entertainment purposes only.
Yep.
My personal philosophy is what we do can be entertaining, but it is not entertainment.
That's right. Yes.
Here in New York, we have the exact same law. On our website, you have to put on for entertainment purposes only. And so even when I get on the phone with someone, I have to say, listen, I don't like saying this, but this is the law.
Yeah,
I have to say that this is for entertainment purposes only, but I do not consider what I do entertainment, but the state of New York does. So I just want to let you know before we go any further, this is where we're at. And people are usually very happy with that.
You know what galls me about that? And of course, we have to conform with the laws, no matter how ludicrous they are. But you know what galls me about that? We have a television program in the United Kingdom, which is followed by many thousands of people. It gives a huge amount of people of the Christian community a great deal of comfort and pleasure, and it's called Songs of Praise. It's been on television for many, many years.
Colin.
I've watched it myself. I have no objection to it. And where people are shown, performing their acts of worship. Now, my TV series and John Edwards Crossing Over and other TV programs that we have on, television here in the United Kingdom have to have this disclaimer that says this is for entertainment purposes only. And I would point out that I am a spiritualist and I am a spiritualist minister. I am an ordained minister. Therefore, when I conduct a demonstration of mediumship, I am undertaking an act of my religion.
Correct.
Then I would say that Songs of Praise should also have the similar disclaimer before that program is shown.
Well, you know what? We live in a double standard world, Colin. We're not quite out of the dark ages yet.
But the problem is that I see with the spiritualist movement internationally is it is spineless. And spineless. It will accept anything that the television authorities, the national authorities, and the regional authorities throw at it, and it buckles down like a whimpering puppy. There is no backbone in this movement at all that will stand up and fight and say, the act of mediumship, the act of spiritual healing is an act, a rite of passage of our religion. And make no bones, more or less we are an internationally recognized and legal religion. Nobody says to the Catholic Church, you can't claim that when you perform the Mass, that you are literally transforming bread and wine into the flesh of Christ and the blood of Christ, and you've got to put a disclaimer up to say, you know, that there are alternative views to this. So why, as spiritualists, do we accept the authority saying, you can't say this, you can't say that, there's got to be a disclaimer for this? On British television, we're still classed as the occult, which is a totally misunderstood word anyway, because all occult, the word occult means is hidden knowledge.
Yes.
So I would have to actually say that actually the spiritualist movement internationally, we are our own worst enemy, because we are spineless and gutless, and we will not stand up for ourselves.
So our show, Knowledge of Spirit, should we be calling it the occult of spirit?
We may have to change our name, but, you know, Colin, I think, you know, for years we've always been this way.
I've got the time of this show all wrong. I thought it was 6 o'clock this evening, not 6 o'clock American time. As I said to Jess, you know, well, that was ruin my evening for me because I've had to put my broomstick away. I can't go out flying tonight.
Well, you know, I had this conversation with somebody, and I won't reveal names, and I was looking to do a segment of a show, and they were concerned. They're like, well, why would you be considering to take that partner on? The Skeptical Society. And I told this person, I said, Colin, I said, you know, our biggest problem as spiritualists is that we hide in the dark. And everyone's afraid of coming out into light. And I said, the problem is that all the stuff that people throw out against us is far worse than what's in reality. But since we hide in the dark, it lets these people perpetuate what they want to put out there, because no one's willing to turn on the light. And I said, that's the problem.
But why should we get into this battle with skeptics? I haven't got the slightest interest in what skeptics have to say. It's not within my field of thinking or the one. I don't actually care what they say about what they think we do and we don't do. It should be of no consequence to us at all. I mean, look, if we look at the broader picture, that's been the bloody problem between religions right throughout the course of history. Because if we look through the course of history, you know, Muslims, Christians and Hindus and Jews, you know, for thousands of years can't agree, you know, on the fact is that basically they're following fundamentally the same belief.
Yep.
Yes.
For God's sake, don't let us fall into that trap by getting into this argument with the skeptics trying to prove what we do. We don't have to prove to them anything. What they think should be inconsequential to us.
That is definitely true. But what I would like to see in our movement is just more people being okay to come out into the light. You know, I was telling somebody, I'm like, you know what? If somebody's a convicted murderer and they're now a spiritualist and they're helping people, so what? Who cares? I mean, one has nothing to do with the other.
Look, yeah, but if you're going to start trying to look, I know a lot of very, very famous people who are privately spiritualists.
Mm-hmm.
Privately spiritualists. Some people in some very, very, you know, prominent, well-known and high-ranking positions in society. You know, I certainly wouldn't approve of like a spiritualist outing. You know, I know the damage that did, you know, in the gay community when they tried that back in the 80s, you know, like outing well-known people. I wouldn't want to see that happening within the spiritualist movement. But, you know, I do have to admit, you know, that, you know, rather like they were saying, you know, like in the gay community a few years ago, there are some people who are privately spiritualists that are so far back in the closet they're almost in Narnia.
You know what? Colin, hold that thought here, because we do have 2 more minutes before we go to a break, and we'll have a 10-minute break. Alan, you want to close up with anything that was on your mind?
Yeah, well, the thing is, Colin, what fascinates me is you travel all over the world. You go to all different countries. And basically, mankind is the same wherever you go, isn't he or she? And
wherever
it's the same.
You go, wherever you go, you meet. You know, the fact of the matter is as a minister, a medium, a healer, a lecturer, a teacher, I find that wherever I go in the world, there is one fundamental need in our field, and that is the desire to have evidence that someone that they care about has survived this thing called death.
Death, correct.
Yes, yes.
Well, yeah. On that note here, we're going to be going off literally in about a minute. So before we go off, we just want to let you know you're listening to Knowledge of Spirit Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. You're listening today to spiritual medium Colin Fry, who is also a reverend, and he is our wonderful guest today. And we're getting into some real good stuff that nobody wants to talk about, which is the ugly state of spiritualism as of today, as we see it. I mean, and we all see it differently. But if you want to listen to this broadcast, go to knowledgeofspirit.com, go into our archives, look at our updates for our guests and bios. It says everything about Colin, every single book he's ever done, every single show that you can possibly imagine. And we're going to be back on at about 8:10. We'll be back on air. So if you're with us out there in the UK, thank you for staying up. Australia, China, Japan, Canada, United States, India, wherever you're at, thank you for being with us tonight. You don't have to be, but you are. And we're going to provide you the best possible contact we can. Alan, you have anything to say before we're out?
No, I just want to say what you've said there, I agree with totally. Without you out there, there's no point us being here. So, you know, God bless the fact that you are there. And we're not talking to ourselves.
Yeah, I don't like talking to myself. They put me in a rubber room with the door on the opposite side of the door, so we don't want that. So guys, we'll be back at 8:10. Stay on. We're coming back with spiritual medium Reverend Colin Fry.
If you are listening to the show and wish to join us in the chat room, visit paltalk.com. Go to the social issues, select other, and enter the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Light up your night with The Kevin Smith Show. Hi, this is Kevin Smith. Join me Monday through Friday right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hello, this is Angela Thomas with a message about living life to the fullest. As a psychic clairvoyant, I often give insights to one's career path, financial situation, or relationship. Whether one is happy or not in their current situation, where he or she is right now is an important part of learning valuable lessons that can lead to fulfilling one's life purpose. If I can offer you insights, feel free to contact me at 636-278-2272, again 636-278-2272, or visit my website, angelathomas.org. I'm considered a psychic, so I provide accurate and detailed psychic readings for individuals as well as groups. Remember, no matter what influences your life at the moment, live life to the fullest. Stay in gratitude, count your blessings, and prepare yourself for more opportunities around the corner. I'm Psychic Angela Thomas, and my website is angelathomas.org.
Hey everybody, this is Erica Getch, and I want to keep you connected every Friday night at 8 p.m. Pacific on the Galactic Connection. As always, I'll be taking your calls in the second hour, and as always, TGC is glad to be a part of the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. So please check out tgcradio.com. Hope to see you there.
Whoa! Did you hear? listen to the Church of Mavis radio show, hosted by Jeffrey Pritchett, 11 p.m. Eastern, Saturday nights. Follow your weird and journey into the high strange. Be sure to stop by www.churchofmavisradio.com for upcoming shows, paranormal news, and show archives. That's www.churchofmavisradio.com.
Hey, hi there. Got your attention? I'm Gia Scott, and I was curious what you were doing from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. See, I host this really interesting little radio program that airs live then, and we bring in all sorts of guests. Authors, experiencers, and everything in between. It's paranormal and guaranteed to make you go, My guest list is always up at www.giascott.com, and do tune in to the Dawn of Shades from 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays.
Tune in to the Mind Cemetery with your hosts Chip and Nicole every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We delve into UFOs, abductions, ghosts, aliens, conspiracies, and cryptozoology.
And how could you ever forget about those creepy topics you won't hear on your local news?
This is where I would insert my obligatory skeptical statement. The Mind Cemetery, where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest.
Follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on Facebook. Also check us out on our website, mindcemetery.com, for show updates and the critically acclaimed Mind Cemetery blog.
It's not critically acclaimed, but you should check it out anyway, mindcemetery.com.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Benetti, and along with Joe Montaldo, we host News on the Flip Side. Come join us every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central for our 3-hour program. We have opinions on everything, and we're not afraid to share them. False history gets made all day, every day. The truth of the new is never on the news, but you can find it here with News on the Flip Side. Remember, don't be politically correct. Just be correct. Join us.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Knowledge of Spirit Radio, where we seek to find the hidden truth. One of your co-hosts, celebrity psychic Jesse Bravo, and with me, always have the wonderful Alan Cox, UK's top radio presenter. And, tonight hello, we have a wonderful... Hey, Alan, you're back.
Yes, I'm here.
You're there. All right, good, because I can't do the show without my co-host. That's kind of an impossibility. But, we have a great show tonight because we're really talking about real stuff. We're not really talking about the fluff. I would love to talk about all the great stuff about spiritualism, and we can. But there's a lot of stuff that's been going on that needs to be addressed. And our guest today, is a wonderful, spiritualist medium, Colin Fry. There's not much more that I could say about the man. He's been there and done that and has been doing this for so long that it's just amazing what a great run he's had. Also with us, we have the editor from Psychic News, Sue, and she's on the line right now. Say hi, Sue.
Hello, Jesse. Hi, Colin. Hi, Alan.
Hello there.
Well,
listen,
let's get right into it. I mean, let's do it.
I'm going to say we've been having long text messages, haven't we, Sue?
We have, Alan. We've had a traumatic evening, haven't we?
Yes, I think we know each other very well after the last hour.
We do. We've never met, but we're intimately acquainted. Absolutely.
Oh, dear.
Well, let's get right into this. I mean, Sue, do you have any questions for Colin that you want to be able to put
Yeah, I mean, Colin and I talk quite often, and one of the things that we've discussed in the past briefly, but I think is a very important one. I heard, just as I was patched in, that you were talking about the state of the spiritualist movement and the fact that we don't stand up for it enough, that we're too easily cowed, that we don't really sort of just get out there. And I think part of that is to do with the fact that there are so many misconceptions floating around about what spiritualist mediumship actually is. So, Colin, I thought we might talk for a while about the difference between a medium and a psychic. I don't know about you, but at Psychic News, it's one of the questions I'm most often asked. What is the difference between a psychic and a medium? And then when I come to answer that, I'm asked a further thing, which is why people are perhaps described as a psychic medium, which doubles the confusion. What do you think?
My personal feeling is I think as spiritualists, we have to be a little bit careful about getting a little bit sort of like snooty about psychics, because my attitude has always been a good psychic that can highlight paths in somebody's life is probably more valuable than a bad medium. But
I entirely agree.
But, you know, a proficient medium. My role is if it is possible, if it can happen, I will be a conduit between this side of life and the other side of life, and I will try to the best of my ability to convey evidence to you of the survival of someone that you have known or is known to you.
Mm. And that is the fundamental difference, as far as I'm concerned, between a medium and a psychic. A medium communicates with those that have passed on. A psychic gives you information from your own energy field, gives you life information, but does not communicate with a deceased person. Would you agree with that definition?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So where do we go then with this so much publicity material, which I get sent on a regular basis in press releases and so on, refers to a psychic medium? It's confusing, isn't it, for the person who's not familiar with it?
It is, you know, and it's, you know, for all of the wonderful and great respect I have for him and his memory, I do wonder why Maurice Barbanel called Psychic News and not Spiritualist News.
Do you know, I edited and I wonder that as well. And I think in the days of the founding of Psychic News in 1932, that was a very common term for mediumship. I think the word psychic has changed its meaning over the years, and that's why we're in the situation that we are in. Because psychic work has become extremely popular in the sense of reading from the auric field, picking up signals from the person and their own energy emission, if you like, in a way that it wasn't popular at the time Barbanel started Psychic News. And that, I think, is the reason for the confusion, that psychic work has very much come to the fore and developed over the years, and is still confused with mediumship. And it is a big confusion for people. I get a tremendous amount of letters about that.
I think this is one of the things within the spiritualist movement we really have to put a great effort into, without wishing to appear to be sort of like elitist or, as I say, snotty about it. I think we have to make this huge effort to separate what is spiritualist mediumship and spiritualist healing away from psychic works, Reiki healers, tarot readers, who, if they're good in their field, are very good in their own right. But I think we need to make a huge effort to move ourselves away from this and say, although we have a respect for that, that is not what we are.
Colin,
it's a different thing entirely from mediumship.
Colin, I wanted to ask you, I was speaking to John Holland the other day. We were having a conversation. And he goes, Jesse, I don't know about you, but have you noticed that everyone's trying to be a medium now? That it's the in thing to say? And he goes, and I just want to ask you what your view is, because I know what his view is privately. Let me just ask you your view.
I've had this conversation with Sue, and one of the things that that I do despair of an movement is the fact is that there's so little time by people put into their development. We've got this X factor instant coffee society, where people see the likes of myself and, John Edward and Gordon Smith and Tony Stockwell and John Edward on television, and they think, oh, I can do that. What they fail to understand is that I know all of these guys. Not one of us approached television. We were approached by television because of the fact that we were known mediums, known spiritualist mediums, long before television ever came along for us. And most of us sat in development for many, many years. Even while we were working and demonstrating, we were still sitting in development. Now we have this instant coffee society where they think that all they've got to do is just add hot water and stir. They get their little cards printed saying professional spiritualist medium. I advocate in the United Kingdom, and it's not always very popular, but I personally believe anyone who wishes to practice as a medium, whether it's professionally, semi-professionally, or without pay, should be registered with a recognised body, so that when a member of the public goes along to see a medium work, they can say, can you show me your credentials? Can you show me who you're registered with?
Is that a possibility? Do you think that can get done?
It exists already. In the United Kingdom, we have the Greater World Christian Spiritualist Church, we have the Spiritualist National Union, we have the United Spiritualists, which is the church that I'm with, and all of those three major organisations in the United Kingdom have a registration scheme where their mediums and their healers are registered. And as I would say, as the spiritualist healer and a minister, to be a minister, not only do I have to go through a vetting and a training process, I also had to have a counselling qualification. I had to be a registered healer and a registered medium with the church before I could even consider to have applied to become a minister. And I think I think everybody, wherever you are in the world, if you are serious about the work you do and you are following your conviction to work as a medium, you should have no problem being registered so that you can offer an assurance to the member of the public that you are serious about the role that you've undertaken and the duties that you undertake. And I don't think that anybody in the United Kingdom or the States or anywhere should be able to function as a spiritualist medium or a spiritualist healer unless they are registered with a recognised body.
Colin, do you believe anybody could be a medium? I mean, can you believe anybody could be a medium? If there's a psychic, can anybody be a medium, or is that something that's born?
No, I don't. And I don't think everybody should want to be either. We are all born gifted spiritually in some way. The secret of life is working out what your gift is. Yeah. And I will say this, we have a very well-known spiritualist college in the United Kingdom called the Arthur Findlay College at Stansted Hall, who in many ways do some very fine work. But, one of the things that, when I was teaching there, and I did ultimately stop teaching there, but one of the things that galled me was the fact is that you sometimes got the attitude that everybody was made to believe that they could be a medium. And of course, not everybody can be. And I have to actually, as well, you have to be quite psychologically strong to be a medium. And there are some people that I do not dispute have the gift, but they do not have the psychological strength to be able to work with that ability. You are dealing with some of the most tragic and fragile human situations and human emotions. And if somebody themselves is a fragile person, they are the last person in the world who should be working as a medium.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
Jesse, can I come in there? Because I feel quite strongly on this issue of whether anybody can be a medium. It's something I've written about extensively over the years. And I liken it to this. I don't know whether Colin would agree, but I believe, as Colin does, that we all have a spiritual gift. I also believe that we all have a particular gift. Now, that gift may not be something, stunning and world-shattering by normal standards. I mean, for instance, my mother's a magnificent knitter, but, it's still a gift. I can't do it. But what I think is this. For example, if you take a piano and a person, I mean, it's possible for a piano teacher to teach absolutely anyone, provided they've got 5 fingers, to play a 5-finger exercise or a scale. But will they ever be able to turn that person into a concert pianist if they don't have that actual initial spark of talent, a God-given gift? Well, the answer is no. I mean, I would like to be an Olympic runner. Because I can run for a bus just about does not mean that I am ever going to be Usain Bolt. I'm not. And what I can't understand at the moment is this incredible fascination with being a medium. It seems to be a sort of
it's a commercial
holy grail, if you like. And one of the things, and I also wonder if That's okay. I was just going to say, Colin, I wonder if you agree with me that one of the things that has precipitated this huge sort of avalanche of people wanting to be a medium has been the very, very many expensive training courses which are specifically geared to persuading people that they can become a medium, if not in 5 minutes, then at least perhaps in 5 weeks. Do you agree with me?
To a big extent, Sue, yes, I do. I teach myself. But when I do one of my, I teach a lot of a college that I helped to save out in Sweden called Ransborgsgardens. It's the oldest spiritualist college in Sweden. And I say to my beginners course, when I have beginners courses, if you have come on this course because there is something fundamentally wrong in your life, and you think that by becoming a medium you are going to be seen to be special, important, that it will elevate your self-esteem, you're here for the wrong reason.
Yes.
Because but for those people who do feel fragile like that, there is another aspect of spiritualism that will help them. And that is the aspect of spiritualism that is the healing aspect of spiritualism. And I would have to actually say, although we do have an extensive network of spiritualist churches across the country, what we lack within those churches is experienced, trained spiritual counsellors. So that when we do get those fragile members of the public whose lives are damaged, are fragile, we do not have enough trained spiritual counsellors within our movement to concentrate on the other side of spiritualism, which is that aspect of healing the sick, whether they are sick of mind, body or spirit. And that is something that we also need to concentrate on within our movement as well.
Wow.
It is, and it's not seen with the same glamorous eyes as the business of being a medium, is it? Again, it's the perception that being the medium, the one who gives the messages, is the be-all and end-all, which is a frightening factor.
Yeah, my partner would tell you, I don't regret doing it, but a few years ago I was persuaded to do 2 series of a TV series called Psychic Private Eyes. And in many cases we were involved in the investigation of murders. There was one particular murder of a young girl in Croydon Sweden, where I was taken to the scene of the crime. And I extended my mind out to the young lady and I said, darling, show me what happened. What she showed me disturbed me, seriously disturbed me for about 7 days. In my mind, seeing a 17-year-old girl viciously, brutally and sadistically murdered, and seeing it in front of my eyes as if I was actually physically seeing it, had the most terrible psychological effect on me. Now, had I not been an experienced medium, working in this field for a number of years, I can't imagine the effect that it would have had on me. So, you know, when people say to me, I'd love to be able to do what you do, and I say to people, you know, I don't think you completely understand all of the responsibilities that comes with what somebody like I does. And thank God I did have years of development and years of training, you know, with highly experienced mediums at the time. You know,
I'd like to just come in.
How to deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah. If I could just come in there just for a minute, Colin. You know, your work that you do and what I do are different, and you might know or you might not know that I'm very well known for doing clearings. You know, clearing bad energies from people's homes, businesses, or whatever. And there are times where I do see things that have gone on in a particular building or area or something like that, and it can be quite it could be quite distressing if I wasn't able to put it into perspective. And I totally understand you have to be strong-minded.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
sorry. This is why I say, you know, that there are, you know, and I sort of tend to support Sir in this. They're just like, there are some people that they might feel they have the gift, and like she says, you know, they might be able to talk like the analogy used of, you know, plonking out on a tune on a piano, but they're never going to be a concert pianist.
Yeah.
You know, and that doesn't mean that there's nothing special about those of us that you could describe as being the concert pianists. But we've just got the natural aptitude to be able to deal with all the ramifications of what being a medium is.
Sue, Colin, let me say this, Sue, for a second. Colin, I don't know if ever you agree with this, but one of the things I always tell people is that everybody thinks that a psychic or a medium is a special person, right? And I'm like, listen, that's bullshit. I said, there's nothing special about it. I said, the only great thing about being... I say, listen, the only great thing about being a psychic and a medium for me is that I had to work on myself, and I had to find out who I was, and that was the only point where I can ever help someone else, is that if I was okay. And I think that was one of the greatest gifts, is that I found out who Jesse Bravo really is. And I don't know if you really agree with that.
You know, Jesse, you know what I sometimes say to my students is, we are all cracked plates. and the fact of the matter is that if you've got past the point of 35, 40, we are all cracked and chipped plates. The secret of life is not to break. And unfortunately, I worry that there are some people that want to come into this way of life, think that they want to be mediums, will even delude themselves that they can be mediums. But they are plates that are so chipped and so cracked that the slightest pressure that being a medium would put on them would be enough to crack them. And I have to say, in my years, I have seen a number of people that I do not dispute had the gift, crack up. You know, have had breakdowns, their marriages have broken up because they just weren't strong enough.
But it's also about putting things into... it's about cutting off as well, isn't it, Colin? You have to know when to cut off and do normal things, ordinary things, day-to-day things.
Exactly.
You have
exactly.
You have to
my civil partner who now lives out of their house in Spain, because I live most of my life out in Spain now. But he occasionally comes on tour with me. And we were in Blackpool once, and a lady came up to him, and she said, "Oh, Mikey," she said, "it must be lovely living with Colin." She said, "I bet he gives you messages all the time."
Never. That never happens.
He said, "We don't discuss Colin's work at home."
Yep.
That's right.
You know, he gets home from a tour run, and I say to him, "How did it go?" We have a 5-minute conversation, and then we get on with our life, because away from all this, I have a private life. I have a husband, I have 10 dogs, I have 9 chickens, I have a farm in Spain to run. You know, we have our work with the animal charity. We have a life away from this.
You have an earthly life to lead.
Yeah, because I have to give 80% of my life to my work as a minister and a medium and as a healer, and then there's 20% of it that is my other life.
Right.
The life where I
crack up if you don't do
detach
anything else.
where I detach myself from this.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Colin, you were talking just now about the need for psychological strength and stuff, and emotional strength in mediumship. How far do you think teachers fail in that regard, in the sense of not just identifying a mediumistic gift in their students or potential students, but actually recognizing a psychological suitability as well? That's a teacher's responsibility, in my view.
It is, most definitely, absolutely. You know, and I have had a number of students who have said, you know, please, you're welcome to stay on the course, but really this is not for you. There are other aspects to this way of life that I think are far more suitable for you. And I will often guide them down the path of the fact that they need spiritual counselling, that they may well benefit from some other form of healing. But, you know, one of the things that I would say, you know, we're so willing in this movement to borrow things from other disciplines. You know, I mean, back in the 50s, you know, we started to incorporate meditation into the development of mediumship, which to me personally is about as much use as a chocolate teapot in the development of mediumship. You know, we started to adopt, you know, things from Tibetan and Eastern cultures, and you know, we've taken this very pure and this very simple message of spiritualism, and we've gift wrapped it into so many things that I think are probably totally unnecessary. But then we've ignored things from other disciplines that would benefit the development of mediums healers so much, like. As a counsellor, and the years when I did a lot of work as a counsellor, you are required on a regular basis to go for a counselling session yourself. Now,
absolutely.
So within mediumship and within so that we're actually dealing and becoming very intimately involved in sometimes very sad and very tragic and very upsetting human experiences. Why do we not have this network within our movement where a medium can go and offload to their senior?
Yeah.
Now, maybe this is something like the Spiritism Association of Great Britain, the College of Psychic Studies, you know, and the Arthur Findlay College should be looking at. It's all very
I think that's a great idea.
It's all very well encouraging people to believe and to develop these gifts, but what support network are you giving them?
Well, you see, I understand what you're saying. My eldest son is a firefighter, and he's had a couple of awards for bravery, and he finds it very hard to talk about what he sees, and he does get offered counselling from time to time. In his work. So, I mean, there's a physical thing that he sees in the course of his job. And when you're giving somebody, when you're counselling somebody, reading for them, in a sense, it's a similar kind of thing, but it's emotionally, it's a mind thing rather than seeing a physical thing. But it can still be very, very upsetting.
Of course. Alan, I have to say, as a minister, in the last, just in the last few months, and you know, for obvious reasons, I can't mention any names, but you know, I've had to offer to 4 mediums, come and have a coffee with me, because your work at the moment is obviously proving to be a strain for you, and you need to come and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So, you know, in my role as a minister and as a trained counsellor, I've offered that service to 4 mediums just in the last year, you know, to come and talk about the psychological pressure of being a medium. And I've always been amazed that this is something that is not part of the overall mediumship training that goes on in the United Kingdom. And, you know, I mean, I remember when I sat on the Council of Spiritualists, which was a number of years ago, I proposed the idea all those years ago, and I said, you know, we need to be including in all development of mediums, whether it's in the churches or whether it's at various colleges, there needs to be a degree of counsellor training for all of the people that we are training to use their mediumistic ability. I don't see that you can be a medium unless you have some fundamental understanding of counselling.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. There isn't a lot of difference between a psychotherapist and a spiritual counsellor in some ways, because it's about understanding, listening, and being able to advise. And there's a lot of similarities.
Counselling, of course, is not about telling people what to do. It is listening and helping them to come to their own conclusions.
That's right. Yes.
Well,
yes.
I could say this, Colin. When Facebook started to really explode, I remember being on my journey, and the guy who was training me at the time says, Jesse, I just want to let you know, the psychic life is a very lonely life. And I want to tell you, I looked at him like he had 2 heads, because me and him always butted heads about a lot of stuff. But what I realized when I set up Facebook, I started to invite all these psychic mediums, or at least what they claim to be psychic mediums. And I want to tell you how many people were so happy to speak to somebody else finally that could understand what they were going through. And it has been very, very helpful. And I'm sure that on your personal Facebook and on your social media, you probably get a lot of people asking you a lot of questions, but mostly from people who are psychics.
On my Facebook pages, it tends to be sort of the general public. There are a number of mediums and other psychics on my Facebook page. And, you know, as I intimated earlier, you know, I caused a bit of controversy yesterday, the day before, you know, just putting this post up about, you know, I'll give you an example of things that I was putting up. I said, look, you know, I'm not saying I'm absolutely right, but I want you to think about these things, you know. And these are the things that I think at the moment are wrong with spiritual lifestyles that are just going off the track. You know, like my pet one, orbs. You know, 99%.
Oh.
You know, they are not the spirit of your grandmother. They are just they are a light refraction or an insect catching the light. You know, the white feather floating across your dining room, you know, is not an angel. You know, it's a dead bird, or your pillows need changing. You know, yeah, and you know, it's. And I just said, you know, establish what you believe, treasure it, value it, look after it, give it, and defend it with your last breath. But don't believe everything, because if you go out to believe everything, you will just come across as insincere and flaky. Establish what it is you believe, and only believe what you have personally had undeniable evidence of. Once whatever you examine, whatever you asking yourself to believe, you must have had personal evidence of it, where you have eliminated every probable explanation. And once you've exhausted all the probable explanation and you are left with the improbable, only then can you accept that that is the answer.
Yeah.
Because any one of us, and I've said this to all my Facebook, if you are ever called upon to defend what you believe, make sure that you damn well can defend what you believe. Otherwise, you deserve to be ridiculed.
Yes.
I think that's so important. Part of our problem is that we're perceived, I think, as flaky, as off the wall, as fantasists, really. And part of that arises from things like, for example, the feather you mentioned on Facebook, Colin. You know, if there is a feather, it's much more likely to have come from your pillow than from an angel. But at the moment, the way the spiritualist movement is in England, I don't know if you agree with this, it is almost totally flaky. Signs are seen in everything. Signs are looked for in everything, from car registration numbers to blades of grass to goodness knows what. And do you agree, Colin? It really has gone mad.
You were talking about this earlier, you know, about like the good old days, you know, and it's like, you know, back in the earlier days, mediums and spiritualists had a respect for guides, but they understood that guides were not gods.
Exactly.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm not going to speak from the point of view of being a sort of a minister. We have one God. Everything else that comes forward is a messenger of God.
Yes.
You know, the word angel means messenger.
Yes, it does.
And you know what I would say is that it's people look to, you know, this. I know a lot of people that are very into angel philosophy. One in particular, a lady called Jackie Newcomb, who I have the greatest of respect for. In fact, I think that Jackie is probably the only one that talks on a level about angels that I find acceptable and understandable. But, you know, we have a fundamental flaw in the human personality. We're always looking for something to lead us. You know, one of my guides once said, it says in the scriptures, God created man in his own image. And he then goes on to say, not any one of us, incarnate or discarnate, can believe that we look like God. But there is truth in that statement. The Creator created us in his own image. He created us by thought, and we were designed to think. That means that we were designed to be our own leaders, to make our own way in life, to make our own decisions, and to stand by them or fall by them. But we have this fundamental flaw in the human personality, that we're always looking for something incarnate or discarnate to take responsibility for us.
Yes, to tell us what to do.
To tell us what to do. You know?
Or to blame if things go wrong.
Is that if you listen to the old, you know, the old guides, you know, like Silver Birch and Red Cloud, not once did any one of these highly evolved guides ever tell us what to do. They gave us
always told us to question as well. So all spoke about the importance of intelligence.
Yes. Yeah. To provoke us to think, to provoke us to take responsibility. And, you know, one of the fundamental principles of spiritualism is personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And some people are very easy to try and put the blame onto others rather than take the responsibility themselves.
Well, you know,
and that was a good point you made, Alan.
If I believe in an angel that's going to come and take all my problems away from myself, I don't have to take responsibility for anything. You know, and I try to explain to people, you know, and sometimes it's not very popular. And they say, I feel so ill. And you have to explain to them, yes, but you're making yourself ill. You're making yourself ill, waiting for something to come along
and save you.
And save you. Pain and all the hurt away. And save you. And that has never, you know, that has never been the principle of the spiritualist philosophy. The spiritualist philosophy says, take responsibility for yourself, and you will be guided.
That's right. You know, Colin, it's funny because we talk about this, but also by state laws, too. And by, you know, different laws of where you practice. you always have to be careful of what you say to people. And I know that a lot of times when we speak to people, I say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you information. What you do with that, your business. That's your business. Because
that's your business.
Because I don't want you coming back to me. And I tell them, I said, I don't care what psychic or whoever you go to. Don't take their word and go making decisions on your life based on their word alone.
That's right.
I'll give you a very good example.
You're screwed.
I'll give you a very good example of this. And she's the other side of life now, so I'm not speaking ill of her. But a number of years ago, I knew a very, very good medium who went along and had a reading with another medium. And this medium said, "Oh, your mother is showing me that you love Tintagel in Cornwall." And she said, "Yes, that's right." And she said, "Your mother's showing me that you should have lots of happy holidays with her." And she suggested, and the medium then said, "I feel that your mother would like you to go and live in Tintagel." So this woman sold up her house, moved down to Tintagel in Cornwall, moved away from all her friends and family, was down in Tintagel in Cornwall for 6 months and was as miserable as sin. She hated it. She was away from everyone she knew, all of her family. Well, in that 6-month period, the property market had changed considerably. So when she tried to move back to the area where she had once lived, she couldn't get anywhere near the size of property that she had before she'd moved to Cornwall. So she ended up having moved from a 4-bedroom house, having to move into a 1-bedroom flat to get back into the area where her friends and family were. And then she whinged to me and she said, "How could Spirit do this to me?" And I went, "No, love, Spirit didn't do this. You did this to yourself. You did this to yourself."
That's right.
If your mother was still on this side of life and she said to you, "Oh, why don't you go and live in Cornwall, love?" You'd have turned around and said, "Well, what do I want to go and live in Cornwall for? All my friends and family are here." So why on earth, now that she's the other side of life, do you think her advice is any more valid than it was when she was on this side of life?
Yes, that's true.
So, when people say to me, "Is my mother with me all the time?" I say to them, "No. My mother's still on this side of life. If my mother was with me all the time, I'd send her to the spirit world." The fact of the matter is that sometimes the public have this very strange attitude to what the spirit, what our loved ones in the spirit world have become and what they're doing. They haven't really fundamentally changed very much, certainly not within any of our lifetimes. If either of my parents started to try and tell me what to do with my life now, I tell them to mind their own business.
Exactly.
So I find it strange that people then go along to mediums expecting a loved one to tell them what to do with their life. They wouldn't have taken a huge amount of notice of them when they were on this side of life. So why are they expecting them now to be the font of all knowledge when they've passed over?
Well, I want to let you guys know we're at the 6-minute mark.
Wisdom, isn't there?
So just really quick, guys, Colin, I just want to let you know we're going to be coming up to now the 5-minute mark to closing. So we're going to have to start closing up our conversation because they will just unplug us, unfortunately. No matter how much they love to hear about us, they just unplug us off the network, off the radio, off the airwaves. So I just want to sort of just get this conversation back to closing so that we can leave off with more answers than questions. And Colin, do you have anything to say in parting?
My parting words to the listeners would be approach the subject of mediumship with an open, intelligent, and questioning mind, and accept nothing unless you can quantify it as being evidence. That is what I would say to the public. And don't go to a medium or a psychic expecting them to solve all the issues in your life, because that's your responsibility. And what spiritualism can do for you is that while you're trying to heal your life, it will give you, at its best, a support network to do that.
Okay. One last thing. Do you have anything upcoming, any tour dates you want to talk about, any books, any programs that you're running that we can talk about really quick?
I've got an ongoing tour in the UK, which people can find out about at www.colinfry.co.uk. My autobiography came out last year, which is called The Happy Medium, which you can get through Amazon, which is www.amazon.co.uk or .com. And hopefully, after being on the air with you tonight, somebody might ask me to come to the United States.
Colin, I'm asking you to come to the United States. Will you come?
I tell you what, if I get the offers of the work, although I have worked in the States over the years, I would be more than happy to come back.
Well, you know what? I'm more than happy to do some work on your behalf then.
It's been a real pleasure.
We need people to be leaders, and that's what we need right now.
It's been a real pleasure. But just very quick, I'm not a leader. I've never desired to lead anybody. You know, as one of my guides said, please don't follow me because I might not want to lead you. And, please don't try to go ahead of me. But, if you want to walk by my side, then that's fine.
Alan?
Colin, it's been a real pleasure talking to you and knowing you. And I hope we have the opportunity to talk again in the future. It's been really good.
And by the way, Sue Farrow is the managing editor of Psychic News.
Yeah.
Killing
Thank you, Sue,
there.
as well.
By the way,
thank you. Britain's oldest spiritualist newspaper.
How old is it? 80 years old?
It was founded in 1932, so it's 81 years old.
God bless you guys, and still running strong under strong leadership.
Sue, thank you so much for persevering. Thank you for persevering. It wasn't easy to get you on air, but thank you for holding on.
We got there in the end, Alan. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Spirit always works its way in the way it's supposed to happen, not the way we want it to happen sometimes.
That's the way it is.
Well, listen, I'm going to lead off here because we got to pay the bills here just really quick. Let you guys know that if you want to hear an archive here, you can go to UOPN 107.7 FM New Orleans or knowledgeofspirit.com. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, find us wherever the hell you can find us. We're there for you, and we continue to bring to you only the best to put out there where what we really need to hear. It may not be what we want to hear, but it is what we need to hear. And I'm so happy that we have a great line of people who really want to be out there and talk about what's real, not fluff. And I'm not into the fluff.
I'll tell you what's quite real at the moment, Jesse. I'm trying to stop myself from laughing watching you walk up and down your room.
Stop watching my webcam. No, there's names for people like you. They're called voyeurs. No, guys, we want to thank you for spending this time for people in Japan. Somehow we have 80,000 people in China. We thank you in China. We don't know where you came from, but we thank you for listening to us. Australia, Canada, within the UK, United States, or wherever you're hearing from us, we know that you can be doing something else, but you're here with us. And we thank you. We want to make you our family, our spiritual family. We're all listening to this for a reason to learn and to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. Alan, anything in closing?
No, I want to. I think it's been a really great show.
We've ended Alan, right? I want to thank Colin and Sue so much for being with us.
Actually, it has been really good, and I think a lot of things that Colin said make so much sense, and Sue as well. And I think it's food for thought for everybody. But the main thing is just enjoy your life, make the best of your life. As well as thinking about spirit and working with spirit, work with people and enjoy people.
Good. As a matter of fact, last thing, next week, according to him, we have the People's Psychic, Mike Davies.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
July 5th, so that's next week. Nice guy, and we'll definitely have some fun. Thank you, guys, and have a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you.
Hustle.